And welcome to a Mercy Now community interview with community member, leader, and what else would you call yourself, Kim?
Agitator. I don't know. Not agitator. Creator.
That's you. And 25 years of workshop experience, too. You've been teaching a long time.
I have.
Yeah, so welcome, Kim Krichbaum. Appreciate you being here.
Great. Thanks, Mike.
And yeah, we're here to talk about gender, and I really chose you for this interview because you've had some interesting explorations recently into gender. And I know you've been excited about this topic lately, and I want to start out by finding out about your earliest gender memories, things that helped define this topic for you, and how you came to know yourself in a gender context.
My earliest memory about gender. My sixth birthday party. I invited 10 girls and 2 boys. My two best friends were girls. And then I went to first grade. And I still remember the wall coming down between the genders. And all of a sudden, girls were the other. And I can remember sitting in the playground in first grade and feeling profoundly sad, like I was losing a part of myself.
Girls were the other. So were you told this, or how did you come to
I
that
think I just
conclusion?
picked it up by how everybody treated one another. I don't remember
Mm.
if I was told it or if I just noticed it, but I could definitely feel it.
And I know you've gone back to that age in sort of looking at gender, because that was an important experience for you, wasn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, I think I've just realized lately, I feel like I finally reversed that. I finally pulled that wall up. And it took years of exploration and awareness, but now I don't feel like male people are the other or female people are the other. I feel like we're all one, and it's not just an idea in my head, but something I experience.
Was there a way or a time that you felt like it was the correct moment to start looking at your gender identity recently? Anything prompted that?
Well, my exploration has been going on for a long time. When I was younger, I saw it as being a cross dresser because I simply didn't have any other kind of container for it. I later did a lot of time exploring my own feelings, both my shame that got in the way and what was really causing me to do this. And I realized ultimately it wasn't about clothes. Clothes are just a language.
Hmm.
It was really about identity. And one of the little cheats that I sort of did during that period is I would use Halloween as a time to do exploration. And oftentimes I would dress up in drag in Halloween, and I would like basically turn the entire week of Halloween into a holiday like that. And and I experienced that, but I always knew it wasn't like I wanted to be a woman. It's like I wanted the freedom to be both. And then just like after last Halloween, I had this again a wonderful experience, and I realized I'm not putting this back in the box. I need to be just genuinely who I am in the world. And so I came out very publicly. I did a theater piece on stage at a local theater group in early November and shared my history and shared who I am.
And through that sharing and your exploration, you have explored something called gender fluidity. And I'd like you to describe for folks what that means to you in interpreting that term.
All right, I guess I want to start with the philosophical and then I want to get personal with it.
Yes, please.
On the philosophical level, there's this idea, and people like to call it the gender binary, which that there are these two boxes. There are men and there are women, and men have a certain type of body and certain qualities, and certain they like certain things and certain hobbies, and they're attracted to certain people, and women have their own set of things that are all tied together in this nice little package. And I don't want to be in either box. I'm not interested in identifying with either group. I am either. I am both. And what that means to me personally is that, like I said, I don't necessarily identify as a woman, but when I look at myself and I look inside myself, like who am I? What are the archetypes that appeal to me? Like I'm a rainbow, I'm an angel, I'm a fairy. I feel like an emotional flow. I'm a circle, not a square. And in our society, a lot of people want to put that in the box of woman. But I want to say, no, I don't fit in those boxes. I am those things. And whether I have a penis or not doesn't have anything to do with whether I get to be those things. So I've created my own combination. And I'm really interested in not being like A or B, but I want to go to a smorgasbord where you get two from column A and three from column B, and you get to make your own plate.
And we're speaking with Kim Krichbaum, who is a community member, community organizer, workshop teacher, and recent explorer of gender meaning in his own life. And now, when I say his, how do you react to that?
Yeah, I had a little bit of
Yeah.
tightness when you said that, Mike. So this is like pronouns are a big deal with people who play with their gender. There is no other human difference that we change the pronoun for except what we perceive as male or female. We don't do it. 2-year-olds and 100-year-olds, we use the same pronoun. Barack Obama or a homeless guy on the street, we use the same pronoun. But somehow if somebody's male or female, then all of a sudden we distinguish as if they're almost two different species. And the pronoun I've really come to prefer is I like to use they and use it as a singular. Because I think it's multi-gendered and it like encompasses all genders. And not only do I like to refer to as they, but my new practice is to really refer to everyone as they. Because I don't want to see anybody else in that box, those boxes either.
I want to take a moment to jump into that box for just a moment and ask, do you think that those pronouns have any usefulness? Do you think that there is sort of another side of the argument, or if it's an argument at all, to use those pronouns? I mean, why do we do that in our society, do you think?
So I think that like what people perceive as gender, what people perceive as men and women has become a primary identity. It is more important when we first meet somebody than any other single detail about them. I don't have a problem with gender. I think that maleness and femaleness are really fun energies and people are going to play with them. And some people who may be born in male bodies love playing with male energy. And some people who are born with male bodies may love playing with female energies. And some may mix it. And all of that is great. But when we turn it into a primary identity, we say it is more important than anything else. We really encourage a sense of difference that creates relationship separation, that creates feeling like women are the other. And I feel like it just hurts us on so many levels. So to me, a pronoun, I don't have a problem with gender, but using a pronoun for gender, which basically means it's more important than any other human difference, I don't buy that. I think it's destructive on pretty much any level I can think of.
And how do you really feel about this? Kim Krichbaum joining us here on Mercy Now. And I'm curious, as you've looked into this, if you've had any mentors or teachers in your life that have helped you open up this idea of a rainbow, and anybody that's kind of a model for gender fluidity.
I don't know that I've had anybody in person who's felt like a model for me. Mm-hmm. Kate Bornstein's book, Gender Outlaw, was really an open door for me. And I feel like Kate really had the idea of people being... Kate blew open the boxes. And she lived on they lived on a continuum. A continuum like where you could basically pick from different parts and you could put them all together and it was all beautiful and there was no rules. I'm going to take this in a different track because I realize there's some stuff I really want to talk about because this is the stuff that's most fascinating to me. As I have really embraced my own gender fluidity, I've had some amazing experiences that have just changed the way that I see life. I had an experience about 4 months ago where all of a sudden I realized that in the first moment that I started a social interaction with anybody, before I even had any conscious thought, my brain identified them as a male or as a female, and it responded in totally different ways depending on who that person was. If that person was a male, I sort of shut down my energy because I thought the interaction wouldn't be juicy and it wasn't quite safe. If the person was a female, I all of a sudden assumed that they could complete me in some way and I wanted something from them. And even though that energy sort of went opposite from the way that I wanted to be, it completely and powerfully affected my life. And as I began to notice that and change it, I feel like I've seen people so much more clearly. It feels easier for me to feel warm toward male people. And it feels easier for me to sort of stay clear and see the female people in my life well and see who they really are, not my projection of them.
When you say you noticed it and changed it, were those two things back to back? I mean, in other words, was it hard to change it after noticing it, or was it hard to notice it, or did both kind of come together? Were you able to change it
Once I noticed that it happened in a really powerful way, and I felt like noticing it wasn't an issue after that point, but changing it is an ongoing practice that I'm still working on. I still have to catch myself in
Hmm.
that moment and say, whoa, that's not how I want to do it.
Reconditioning.
Reconditioning.
Hmm.
And something else I'd like to add that's like sort of come out of that. Um, I used to, like I said, have this idea. I think I used to like have parts of myself that I felt like I couldn't have inside me, and so I needed them from a woman. Specifically, there was a kind of a really deep flow, a deep being in the body that I often notice in dance, where how like loosely they can like move their hips, and and I really tied that up with sexiness and sexuality. And I always felt like sexiness wasn't in me. That sexiness was something outside of me that I had to get from a woman. Now, since I have begun like sort of liberating myself and like when you notice what happens, all of a sudden I found that I can move my body in that same way. I've been able to like loosen up my hips and loosen up my shoulders. And there's times I'm out on the dance floor where I feel like I am the sexiest thing on the dance floor. Like it's in me, it's not outside anymore. It's something I can share with someone, but I don't need to get sexiness from a female person or from anybody else. And that feels great.
Mm. Kim Krichbaum is our guest, and we are talking about gender. And what about male sexiness? Do you think that male, sort of the, hard edge, how would you describe male sexiness? Or were you describing both genders when you were just describing sexiness?
Wow, this is a complex thing, and I think that there is a male sexiness. And I think that in my mind, I had that so tied up with sexual abuse and not treating like female people well, because that's what happened to my mom. And so I really had a hard time claiming that for my own. I see now that there is a kind of sexiness that can be very assertive, but also very respectful and loving. But I also noticed that there are very few male people who I see really be able to feel that fully in their own bodies. That males have been taught that sexiness that is vulnerable, that sexiness that isn't assertive or thrusting, is frightening and terrifying, and that if you display it, you might get beat up. If you start feeling those feelings, that you might unpack things inside yourself, and you might not be able to hold the control you're supposed to have to live in the world as a man. I feel like there's all kinds of stuff there.
And what has been your experience from reactions from the outside world to your gender exploration? Have you had any feedback?
Well, interestingly enough, a large percentage of the feedback I've gotten has been very positive. And the thing that I have gotten the most flack for, basically the message goes like this. We think it's fine that you want to dress female sometimes, but why don't you dress like a hipper woman than you do? Like they want me to dress subdued, like an earth mama. They want me to be chic. And the fact is, like, I love colors and playfulness. And I often this is sort of a half joke, but it's half true. Like I have the aesthetic of a 12-year-old girl who's watched a lot of Disney movies. And but that's really who I am. I have this sense of wonder and childlikeness, and I realize that it triggers people because not only am I crossing over a male-female boundary, but I'm crossing over an adult-child boundary. And like one of the hardest things is for them to be able to see a male person who is in some ways portraying themselves as both female and childlike, and yet that's who I am. That is the beauty of my soul, and I want to heal the split between male and female, but also the split between adult and child. And I want to say to adults that we can be completely mature and responsible for ourselves and totally childlike and playful. One thing that I've noticed, I really have had moments lately that they felt like almost enlightenment moments where I've sensed the world beyond the gender binary. And when I say that is like not, beyond male and female energy. We're always going to have that. But beyond these stiff boxes that are controlled, but realizing that it's all a continuum and it's all choices and we get to play with all of it. And I've really felt that world inside. And one thing I've noticed that I feel like really keeps us in that old world is when we let our brains think in terms of men and women. One of the things that I used to be very patient with, and I'm now no longer patient with, is when somebody will gripe about the other gender. And you've heard it too. Men are just so scary and nasty and out of touch with their feelings, yeah, 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 and women are da 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 and all this. And I realize I hate that. And it's so wrong. And I feel like what happens is somebody has a painful experience, but then because of the boxes in their brain, they take that painful experience and they project it into half the people in the world who happen to share the same sexual parts. And that's just wrong. It's destructive. It doesn't help anybody. And it creates broken relationships. It makes it harder for people to get close with one another. And right now, I just want to be a crusader. Like I don't believe we are men or we are women. I believe we are human beings, and we all have different pieces of male and female and different bodies and different styles. And I refuse to see people through those boxes. And I want to encourage everybody in my life to stop seeing people through those boxes too.
Well, Kim Krichbaum, thank you for helping us along the way to do that and to sharing your words and your experiences.
Well, for me, the greatest thing is to find an exercise that helps somebody experience, like in the moment, all those experiences that I've talked about, like when I've seen those gender filters, where I've recognized the parts in myself that I felt like were outside myself that I want in. I design exercises to help people get in touch with that. And I feel like the best way is just to describe one. So we have people so all of us, no matter like how we identify, have a voice in our head that says, you should not be like the other gender. Even if mentally we think it's okay, we'll still have this old voice will tell us you should not. But the other thing that happens in our culture is because of things that have happened, we also have this voice that says we should not be too much like our gender either. So if you're male, it must say you should not be feminine, but you should also not be a male chauvinist pig. So all of a sudden there's this really thin path that we're supposed to walk in between. It's sometimes really hard, especially to find an authentic self. So one exercise I do is people sit down with a partner, and their partner will ask them over and over again for like 4 minutes, if you weren't scared of being feminine, what would you do? And then people just let arise, and they notice what are those little walls in their head that are keeping themselves from being a certain way. And then they'll do it with their partner, they'll switch roles, but then they'll go back, and then they'll also ask them, if you weren't scared of being seen as too male or some kind of male chauvinist pig, you would. And then they get in touch with those walls. And people move the walls, and all of a sudden they say, who do I want to be inside? When I get rid of those boxes of male and female and how much I should be of each, who am I? So that's an idea. Like we do different exercises like that to like notice ourselves, to notice what the filters we do with other people are, to notice what happens with attraction. It's exciting stuff. And if you wanted to have people want a way to get in touch with me, 1rainbow2rising3@gmail.com.
Kim, you've talked about 2 boxes, male and female. I know there are 3rd boxes too for people that are born with ambiguous gender.
Yes.
And I'm wondering, for people who are attached to these boxes, is there usefulness there? Is there something where people get a sense of security from their box?
Well, that's a little tricky for me. I think that when we see those boxes as rigid, when we see those boxes as something we have no choice over, when we see those boxes as, if I have this body, then I must feel this way and have these qualities, and it's not okay for me to feel this way and have these qualities, that's destructive, and I don't think it ever helps anybody. When we think of that as an archetype, and an archetype is a very powerful energy, and as long as we keep that archetype fluid and realize we always have choices, there are some people who say, wow, I happen to be male and I really want to explore my male energy. I feel like I haven't really gone with it. That's great. And I feel like I've known some transgendered people who say, wow, I was born male and I feel like a woman and I want to explore that. I want to say I totally embrace it as an archetype as long as it doesn't become a rigid box.
So, Kim, you mentioned earlier about how you felt that you were sometimes reaching or grasping for the other gender at times. And now that you have explored this gender fluidity, what is your attraction schema like now? Do you feel attraction the same way?
This has been a really fascinating journey for me, Mike. At first, I realized that there was a little bit of desperation in all of my attraction. And there was a place where I really let go of it. And I didn't just think about letting go of it, I did. And there was a period where I didn't feel attracted anymore because I was so used to seeing attraction as this, having this desperation piece, and felt like I didn't feel it. And I was terrified. Oh my God, am I never going to be attracted to anybody again? But in truth, this maybe lasted 3 or 4 weeks. And then I felt like attraction came back, but it was different. It was richer. It was more connected. It was like I was really seeing the person. It was attraction that was really more like actual love. And more fulfilling. And to be honest, I feel like I'm making less stupid choices than I have in the past. So I think it was a great journey, but there was a scary little chasm I had to walk across on the way.
Sounds like you went a little bit deeper.
I both found myself in some ways, and I feel like I saw others in some ways. I was really able to see, because it used to be like, so I would be attracted to a woman and I would want a certain kind of vulnerability, sexiness, vulnerable. Like I wanted to get that from them. And so I would project them on them, whether they were that or not, whether they wanted to have those qualities or not. But now it was like I was seeing them. I was seeing when they were strong. I was seeing when they were vulnerable. I was seeing what it is that they really wanted. It was like somebody took the scales away from my eyes and I was able to see them as whole people.
Kim Krichbaum speaking on gender here on Mercy Now. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been a really enlightening time. Thank you.